So, check this out. Let me take you back to 2008. It was by no means pre-internet. However, in terms of technology, it might as well have been a century ago. Smartphones had only just come out, and most kids did not own their own laptop. And it would still be a few years until infants were navigating tablets before they could speak. Although children might have spent hours on the internet, they weren't spending every waking moment in front of it. Not yet, at least. The point I'm trying to make is that a child might not come to the realization that if they wanted to know something, they should just Google it. I had heard rumors from friends that there was going to be an animated Star Wars movie that would kick off a television series. I didn't buy it. By the time I was 10, I had learned that you couldn't trust rumors from fellow 10-year-olds. I can't tell you how many hours I spent trying to unlock Toad in Super Smash Bros. Melee. However, over the summer, I saw several trailers for the Clone Wars movie. So if that was real, then the TV series must be real, right? Yeah, I still wasn't convinced. August 31st, 2008. I turned on Cartoon Network to watch the season finale of Ben 10 Alien Force. X equals Ben plus 2. Cartoon Network had overhyped this finale to the nth degree, constantly bombarding their commercial breaks with promos. Each one ended with the exact same tagline. I wasn't able to find this promo. Like many, it might be lost, so I'm going off of my own faded memory. But the line was roughly, "And stay tuned to see the greatest thing to ever come to television." The episode itself was underwhelming to say the least. However, what happened next I still remember to this day. I was blown away. I knew about the recently released Clone Wars movie, and I had overheard that it was going to kick off a TV show, but I had no idea that it was coming to my favorite TV network and that it would be airing every Friday. To say that I was excited would be an understatement. It was big, it was epic. I mean, it's Star Wars. How else can you describe it? In the short time that I have been watching animated TV shows, I've seen many that have inspired me, moved me, or changed the very way I think. The Clone Wars may not be on the same level as some of the shows I've listed, but I've never seen a show like the Clone Wars. It was the first time, and so far the only time, that 9 o'clock animated television became cinematic. So, what'd you think? That was the intro I wrote in high school. It's, okay, I guess. I kind of like the one I wrote in college a bit better. Here it is. It is my firm belief that all roads lead to or away from Star Wars. When discussing the history of film, pop culture, or even modern storytelling, I do not believe that there is one singular saga that has been more influenced by the films of the past, while simultaneously being just as influential on the films of the future. In turn, Star Wars exists in this nexus, in which any road of conversation will inevitably make its way back to it. Am I saying that Star Wars is the single greatest work of fiction? Not by a long shot. In my opinion, the merit of Star Wars comes down to the fact that it was an entertaining summer blockbuster, further elevated by a dynamic cast, revolutionary special effects, its seamless melding of several different genres, the willingness of its director to play to his strengths while compensating for his weaknesses, and the film's willingness to dip its feet into higher philosophical and spiritual concepts. Briefly touching on them, but not losing sight of the hero's journey. These factors, as well as its impeccable timing, led Star Wars to be a cinematic giant, and later, an incredibly lucrative multimedia franchise. The story of Star Wars is not just the story of a rebellion overthrowing an empire. It's the story of the sci-fi genre being reinvigorated. It's about the rise of the auteur generation and their gradual decline. It's the story of a man attempting to circumvent the Hollywood system. It's the story of a generation of disillusioned youths being reinvigorated by a classic tale of good and evil. It's the story of a man finally giving up his child and entrusting them to others. And somewhere in this grand epic, filled with joy, tragedy, and no shortage of comedy, comes the Clone Wars. This series, which first premiered in 2008 and arguably ran until 2020, carries all of the aforementioned weight that Star Wars brings. And like the movies, the show is also a nexus. It's the last creative project of George Lucas before his retirement. It's a feat of CGI animation that is yet to be matched on television. It's a transition from the old Legends continuity to the now dominant Disney canon. It's one of the last big children's action shows, which became less prominent as the 2010s continued. It's also, in many ways, the passing of a torch to a new generation of writers and directors. I don't think The Clone Wars is by any means the greatest animated series. It certainly has its moments, and I think there's more to admire than to complain about. But what I can say with complete certainty is that through all the highs and lows, The Clone Wars carried the same weight and gravity that Star Wars usually carries. To me, it's the first, and so far the only time, that children's television felt cinematic. That one's a bit better, but at this point it doesn't really matter. Because after 4 years of hiatus and 6 years of my life working on it, my Clone Wars review is never coming out. If by some chance you happen to be one of the 12 people waiting for it, I can say from the bottom of my heart that I am sorry. If you're someone who clicked on this video for some other reason, hi, my name is Flamio, and this is Flame Runner Productions Reviews. You know, I'm ditching the script. Yep, that's right, I'm going to do the rest of the video unscripted. If you think there's a problem with this, just you remember, it was ambition that made me take 6 years to finally make this video. So, what the hell happened? Well, as I was saying in sort of the scripted portion of this video, it came down to a few things. First thing was that I fell down a never-ending rabbit hole. You see, it started with needing to watch the entirety of the original series, which was a given. Then watching the original 2D series, I had actually already done that before even watching the CG series. Then watching the movie, but you know, we haven't entered insane territory yet. This is where things get a little nuts. I decided to do something that I don't usually do, or did not usually do at that time, was do research. My god, how that would have upended so much of Channel Awesome if people actually did research before their videos instead of just giving their off-the-cuff opinions. It was kind of one of those things that was interesting because I was in that, it would have been around 2015 or 2016 when I started doing the Clone Wars stuff, and that was actually the time in which kind of that transition was already in effect. You know, Gamergate had happened a year or two previously, and like video essays were becoming more prominent, and it really wasn't, it was kind of unacceptable at that time to just give your off-the-cuff opinion, because opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, and more likely than not, your opinion sucks. Your opinion is ill-informed. Your opinion is kind of just your raw reaction or based on assumptions that you've made. So basically it just came down to doing research, and it was researching the Legends continuity, researching how Bantam initially got things started with Timothy Zahn, and how the Thrawn trilogy took off, and how that affected publishing, and how Bantam made a very smart business decision early on, which was, we are going to have a story team to approve stories. And the foundation that Bantam Publishing laid down by having a story group and by maintaining a consistent continuity allowed Dark Horse to spring off of them and allowed them to build off of the foundation Bantam had laid down. It would later let LucasArts and the multiple video game developers would build off of that same foundation. And it was really interesting stuff and definitely worth its own video, which made me want to restructure everything so that I'd have a 3-part introduction series, and like part 1 would be called like a long time ago, part 2 would be called Far Far Away, and like part 3 would be called Creating the Galaxy. And kind of the way I wanted to do it was, first I wanted to focus on just the entire like Legends history, starting with like starting in 1976 with the novelization of A New Hope, what we would later call New Hope. At that time, it was just called Star Wars, and kind of like how that novelization by Alan Dean Foster kind of laid down was technically the first expanded universe book, arguably, and how the entire Legends media got started, and kind of just recapping that history, because it actually is really interesting. And one of the points, because I actually have a pretty long script that I don't plan on making, but I thought I had a lot of decent points in there. Was one of the things I really wanted to stress is that it's nothing short of a miracle that the continuity in Legends was as consistent as it was. Now, that's not to say there weren't continuity errors. That's not to say weren't massive retcons. There were. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Yes, there were. But the fact that it lasted for 40 years, essentially had no centralized sort of creator. I mean, I guess George Lucas is what you would count, but it was sort of just George Lucas giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Like, there wasn't really like any centralized creative direction to it, so it was kind of just a bunch of writers going nuts. The fact that it was as consistent as it was is nothing short of a miracle, and actually is worth a lot of admiration. And what I will also say, and this is more important than any discussion on continuity, is the fact that a lot of them were great stories. A lot of them were not, but a lot of them were. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with the part 1. And then with part 2, I wanted to talk about like George Lucas. I wanted to talk about Skywalker Ranch. I wanted to talk about Cartoon Network and how Cartoon Network ended up with running the show. And then in part 3, I wanted to talk about how I wanted to... Actually, I might have jumped the gun. I think part 2 was focused on George Lucas. Part 3 would be on Cartoon Network, and how Stuart Snyder ultimately fought hard to make sure the Clone Wars would end up on Cartoon Network, which was a smart decision at the time. And honestly, it was sort of one of those things where there's delaying your gratification, and then there's delaying it so much that you never ever that it becomes unattainable. And that's kind of what I had reached a point with, where it wasn't really fun to work on this anymore, because there was no just gratification. Like, it was all, okay, it's gonna be great when it's finished. When is it gonna be finished? This is the year I'll finish it. And I guess I'm sort of moving now into like the moving into the bigger discussion, which is, I went to college, which that was the best 4 years of my life. Unfortunately, that last semester was cut a little short due to COVID, but college is one of those things where it was 4 years of mistakes and triumphs, and the mistakes I admire more than the triumphs, because there were many more mistakes, but god damn it, I'm so happy I made them. And how do I get into the more serious part of this video? Basically, what I'd say is, it's really hard to work on something big, for something for such a long time, because it's when you've been working on something long enough, you begin to ask questions like, why am I doing this? Was it all worth it? Why am I putting so much energy into this? Is it all going to be worth it? I've sunk so much time into this. Is there any way it's going to be worth it? And these are all terrifying questions to ask, and we all have to find our ways of reconciling with them. And what I found with this one review project is, I am glad I procrastinated on it. And the reason I'm glad I procrastinated on it was because I found more important things in life that I wanted to do. I wanted to take classes. I wanted to get better at filmmaking. I have not got better at filmmaking. I discovered writing was the thing I needed to pursue. Something I still need to pursue, because potential is not the same thing as talent. But I'm working there. And to me, the fact that this is never going to come out, this isn't really me being a defeatist. It's me actually like freeing myself of it and actually just being happy with the things I accomplished, being happy with living the 4 years of college that I did, meeting the people I did, working on the projects I did, having a small number of things that I'm proud of, having many more things that you nor anyone else will never ever see, but I secretly am happy about and don't regret making. Because, I guess at the end of the day, as much as we like to romanticize the process of creating stuff, whether it be passion projects or art, it's so much of it is just the courage to do it, even if it's not good. And this might not sound very romantic, but sometimes you have to make stuff that sucks before you make stuff that you're happy with. Some people are never happy with what they make, but it's a lot of it just has to come down to the courage of doing it. And I would be much I think if I ever did make the Clone Wars review, I think what would happen is I would have made something that was fine or okay, and it would not have justified the amount of time I sank into it. Like, when all is said and done, I keep saying I've been working on this for 6 years. It's more like I was working on it for 2 years, and then for the next 4 years I told myself that I should work on it and never did. So it was more like 2 years of actual work, 4 years of procrastination. And when all is said and done, I think I took the right path. So, yeah, I guess that I'm now sitting down to make this video. I'm realizing that this was all pretty short. Thought this would go a little longer than I thought. Where do I go from here? Oh, yeah, I know. So, here's the funny thing. I should probably tell this story. I was, way back in, this summer. Not way back, actually. Summer of 2020. I was, some of my friends were coming over, and they had this idea for this, one of them, who I don't think he really knew what he was getting into, had this idea for a, kind of like a sort of like a funny thing to do would be, why don't we watch every movie or review you've ever made? And I don't know exactly how it came down to, and I like jokingly said, like, that's going to be 16 hours worth of video. And he's like, no, we should do it. We should watch everything you've ever made. And I'm like, okay, I'm holding you to it. Just let me know I did warn you. And we sat down to watch it, and I don't think he realized I was being serious and literal when I said it will take 16 hours to get through this. Now, in my defense, I did not make everyone sit down for 16 hours. I made them sit down for 2 hours, and I just left. I made them sit down for 2 hours and watch like the most recent stuff I made for 2 hours, while for literally the whole day, the 14 hours worth of content went for the rest of the day, till in the evening we sat down to watch the good stuff, quote unquote. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a horrible day. It was horrible for a few different reasons. One of them was I sat down to watch myself talk as a teenager. And I thought, like, oh, this is gonna be funny. He's gonna be this like completely different, awkward kid, and I'm gonna like cringe about it. But I'm gonna be like, man, I really hate when I was like that. And when we sit down to watch it, and I'm speaking in the exact same cadence, I'm wearing like the exact same clothes, and nothing is different, despite that it was 5 or 6 years ago, and I was like horrified by it. I was like, oh my god, this is just me. I always remember myself as being so much better in college, but this is just the same fucking person. And that was like one thing that was horrible. The other part was, it was kind of just this horrible reminder of like, oh my god, I don't like anything I've ever made. Like, even the recent stuff, like I have no regrets in making it, but oh god, this sucks. I'm not happy with this. And it was one of those. And in my head, when I when I was working on all of this, making this playlist that, we all had to sit down for like 2 to 16 hours to watch, I remember doing a lot of thinking just about like, anyway, knocked my water bottle. I remember just doing all this thinking about like what it means to commit to something for so long, because I remember like in high school it used to be this like really bold thing for me to just, sit down and work on videos for so long, and that was the thing I did for in high school. And then in college it was, working on films, and all but this like sort of hopelessly naive idea that what you're doing matters. And eventually I just came to this point where I had one of those, is this all worth it? Like, my God, I've worked between high school and college. I've basically sunk 7 years into my life, like just trying to either make reviews, critique media, or make media, and all of it sucks. That's not a fun, sobering realization to come to. And one thing that I took away from that stuck with me was just that you have to strike a balance of delaying your gratification and pushing, obviously pushing yourself to reach a point, but if it's not bringing you any joy anymore, don't do it. And in a weird sort of way, there was like a realization after that night of, don't pretend you're going to do this thing anymore. Don't pretend you're going to make this review and then revitalize your channel. You're not. You're just not. You've been stressing yourself out for the past 4 years, telling yourself you're going to do it, not doing it, and then being upset with yourself about it. Just let it go. This isn't even the number one thing you wanted to do. It's number 7 or 8. Like, and the true tragedy would be if I didn't do those other things I wanted to do in college. If I didn't meet the people I didn't want to make, didn't try again to, make something I was proud of. I still haven't done it yet. I'm still working there, but I can see the progress being made on that. And honestly, that would be so much worse. And basically I told myself, focus on the things that you actually need and want to do, and then everything else, just let it go. So that's, I think, the main thing. There is one other thing that I wanted to mention, and that was, the intro, I talked about how I was an online critic. Like, yeah, I was, but I didn't have any followers. I didn't have any fans. I had subscribers. I had like a 400 Minecraft players, which I, like some older brother, watched them grow up into Fortnite players. Like a bunch of, freaking middle schoolers who were, 5, 6, or 10 years younger than me. That was my fan base. People who had yet to actually realize that there were much better people on the internet. So I didn't really have reoccurring, I don't think it's accurate to ever say I had fans, because I don't think there was any consistent traffic. It was always like a revolving door of new people. But what I will say is, like, for all of the vile, people you find on the internet, there was just so many people who were just encouraging and like telling me to keep going, and you don't hear about that enough. Like, there was just so many people like cheering me on, and like who just had nice things to say, and even a few critiques here and there, but like all in good faith and all with this like cadence of, hey, like, if you keep working at it, you keep trying, I think you'll be famous one day. And there's just so many, good spirited people. And I guess I don't really know where to go from there. I guess this microphone's dead, so I'm not even sure I'll use this take, but I guess what I'll say is, I've never really directly addressed the viewers of the video, because I always assumed they were changing, which they were. So, hi, I guess is what I'm saying is hello. Yeah, hello.